Hey YouTube, I'm Nick from Nick282K. In this video I'm going to show you how to change the close focusing distance on a Rokinon 8mm f3.5 lens. Normally the closest focusing distance for this lens is about 1.5 feet away. After it's been modified you can focus about 1.5 inches away. This lets you get some really unusual distortions when you're shooting close up. Here's a short demonstration in the change of focus you get. Its original focus was at the far end of the keyboard, and with the modified focus it's only 2 inches away, about the Alt key in this picture. To do this modification you're going to need a few tools. The first one is a small Phillips screwdriver. The other is a small flat screwdriver. You must have a pencil. If you don't have a pencil you're going to have a real hard time putting this lens back together. A heavy-duty magnet is really helpful for catching a ball bearing that's responsible for the clicking action in this lens, and a reasonably sized magnet to hold your screws as you remove them. I find putting screws on a magnet like this is a lot better than putting them in a jar or a lid, because you can keep them separated and they won't roll around. To start, you have to remove the lens mount adapter. There's 3 screws around the edge of it. Depending on which camera you bought this lens for, there'll be a different mounting distance between the lens and your sensor. This comes off with just those 3 screws, and make sure that you mark with a pencil where this adapter lines up. If you put it back on the wrong way, you'll find that the top of the lens ends shifted by 120 degrees from where it should be. Once you've removed your lens mount adapter, you're going to have to take off 3 tabs that hold in the coupling ring that couples the aperture ring to the little arm that actually actuates your aperture. There's 3 small tabs held on with 3 screws, and these are Phillips head screws. Once you've removed those small tabs, you can remove the coupling ring. Make sure that you hold the little arm that actuates your aperture with a screwdriver, because it's spring-loaded and it's probably not good to have it slap around under the tension of the spring. Holding the lever, you can pop the ring out and then release the lever so that the aperture shutters all the way closed. Opposite to that little lever is a small arm that's coupled to the aperture ring. That's what pushes the coupling ring and changes your aperture. When you reassemble it, you'll have to remember that there's a tab on that coupling ring that leans up against that small arm that adjusts the aperture. There are 4 screws that hold down the next retaining ring. You'll have to remove these with a Phillips screwdriver. Also make sure that you use a pencil to make another line to allow you to put this ring back in the right orientation. If you don't put the ring back in the right orientation, you'll have the same problem with your lens mount, except this time it will be displaced by 90 degrees instead of 120. Here we're looking straight down at the aperture click mechanism. Those little notches in the ring are made to fit a ball bearing that's held inside a small tube with a spring. Bring your really strong magnet up next to those notches, and as you pull the ring you'll see that ball bearing come shooting out. If you don't have a magnet ready or some other way to catch that ball bearing, you will lose it. It is almost microscopic. If you can, try to remove the spring as well, because it may shake loose as you do the rest of this modification. Use your pencil to leave another line so that you can put this lens back together in the right order. This next retaining ring is held on with 3 small slot-headed screws. You don't have to completely remove them, you only have to loosen them, and the retaining ring will slip off. The next step is to remove the rubber grip from the focus ring. This can be a little bit fiddly. I find the best way to do this is to slide something underneath the one edge and then peel it back from the other side. Just start anywhere and start peeling all the way around and you'll be able to slip this ring off. Turn the focus ring so that it's set at infinity focus and use your pencil to leave a mark. You're going to be removing 3 very small set screws with your flat screwdriver. These set screws hold the focus ring that has the dial onto the helicoil that actually does the focusing. There's also a small Phillips screw, which is the limit screw. That's the screw that actually stops it from moving past infinity focus or past its minimum focus. Remove these 3 small screws and your focus stop, and then you'll be able to slide that focus ring right off of the lens. The next thing we're going to do is make the modification that allows you to focus closer than this lens is intended. This screw here is the infinity focus stop. The focus ring bumps up against it on the left side. This hole is where the close focus stop screw normally is, and the focus ring will bump up against it on the right side. That's what that Phillips screw was on the focus ring. By removing that screw, you allow the focus ring to travel all the way around and then bump into the infinity focus stop on the far side. Once you've removed that close focus stop screw, you can start putting everything back together. When you put the focus ring back on, you should put the Phillips focus stop screw in first and then turn it so it bumps up against the infinity focus ring. This way you know your infinity focus will be the same as it was before you took it apart. When you get back to installing the ball bearing, try to make the ball bearing sit in the spring by holding the lens at an angle. Then use your aperture ring and try to capture that ball bearing by putting that one side on first. You'll be able to push that ball bearing into the hole with the spring. Then you can line up the small tab that actually does the aperture adjustment with the aperture ring and push it into place. It's plastic, so you'll be able to deform it slightly, and you shouldn't lose the ball bearing. Reinstalling the coupling ring also needs a little bit of a trick. Adjust the aperture ring to 3.5 and then grab the little tab using the coupling ring and those 2 little forks. Twist it all the way as far as it will go open, and then push the other side down so that it catches on that little arm I showed you earlier. Now the coupling ring will be engaged both with the aperture ring and the small arm that does the aperture adjustment. As long as you line up all your pencil marks, the reassembly is just as easy as the disassembly. If you've never done lens work or camera repair before, this might take you a while. For me, to film this video, it only took me 22 minutes from start to finish, and that included setting up cameras and changing focus and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you do this modification, I hope it works well for you. I'm glad I did it. I have a lot more options with this lens now, and you will too. Thanks for watching.